Good morning and happy Tuesday. Or if you're watching this in the afternoon, good afternoon. If you're watching this in the evening, good evening. So I have a question. So we're going to talk about housing today, but what was the weather like yesterday on Monday, towards the end of the day? Can you answer that question for me? What was the weather like? It was raining, right? Yeah, that was a little bit surprising because the morning it was sunny and then later it got very cloudy and rainy, but the rain was nice. It was nice weather. Okay, now that that's out of the way, housing. So we will continue to talk about housing this week. Today we're going to talk about how many, so asking questions about how many. And we're also going to talk about have and has. We will get a few new words today, just a few. I know we got a lot yesterday, so we're only going to get a few new ones today. And most of what today will be is practicing writing these sentences, or sorry, writing these questions and then writing the answers to the questions. So I think the how many, I think they're a little bit easier. So if you're worried that we had a lot yesterday, we don't have quite as much today. But we will use some of the things we learned yesterday in today's lesson, some of those words. All right. How many? When we want to know how many, we use this pattern. How many, plural noun, are there? For example, how many books are there? How many tables are there? How many chairs are there? So something you may have noticed, and again it says plural noun. Note we always use the plural form of the noun. In our answer we may use either there is or there are. And we'll look at a few of those. But anytime we ask the question, how many, we will use the plural form of that word's noun. So we would not say how many book is there or how many book are there. How many books are there? So always the plural, and because it's plural, we will use are and there. So some examples. Oh, let me move my face. Probably going to be doing this a lot. So in this picture, how many flowers are there? So yesterday we learned there is, there are sentences. So I'd like you to answer with one of those. So go ahead, you can just say the answer. I'll ask the question again. How many flowers are there? In this picture, how many do you see? What do you think? There are 3 flowers, right? We can see 1, 2, 3. So we can say there are 3 flowers. How many flowers are there? There are 3 flowers. How many TVs are there in this picture? How many TVs are there? What do you think? There is 1 TV. There is 1 TV. How many TVs are there? There is 1 TV. So just like we talked about yesterday, if there is 2 or more of something, we use there are. So in our example, there are 3 flowers because there are 3. For the TVs, because there's only 1, we use there is. Now the next one might be a little bit hard, but we'll talk about the answer. How many books are there? So I'll give you just a minute, just really look at the picture. How many books are there? Do you see any books? What do you think? How many books are there? There's no books, right? So we say there are 0 books. So one very interesting thing about 0, and we would do the same thing if we said no, we use are when the number is 0. So for this, there are no books, there are 0 books. We say there are 0 books, 0. Or there are no books, which has the same meaning. So 0 is kind of special. So we use are anytime we say 0 or no. So there are 0 books, there are no books. So that's just a little thing you got to remember. So one question you might have is, well, why do we use plural in the question? And that's a fair question to ask. The reason that we use plural in the question, so how many books are there, is we're asking for a number and we don't know how many. The answer could be 1, it could be 2 or more, it could be 0, but we're opening it to there might be more than 1. So it's a basic idea there. So we use the plural because we're thinking maybe there is more than 1. And so we're opening it to that possibility. So always use the plural in your questions. In your answer, you will use either the singular if there's 1 of that thing, or you'll use plural if there are 2 or more of that thing, or 0 of that thing. All right. So one other thing we are going to practice here, because I think the how many isn't too bad. I think once you kind of practice it a few times, it's not too bad, especially answering the questions. I think the questions aren't too hard to answer. So I want to make this a little more challenging, and I will ask you to do this in the activity also. I'll give you different pictures though. So I'm going to have you write a how many question about one of the items in the room. In this example, I would like you to ask about the number of pictures in the room. So picture, use a picture right here. If I want to ask about that, a how many question, what would my question be? How many, and then what would I say? What do you think? And if you're a little confused by the wording, I think you'll see what I mean when we go to the next slide. But if I want to know the number of pictures in this room, how would I ask that? What would my question be? What do you think? Go ahead and say it. So we would say, how many pictures are there, right? Because our pattern is how many, plural noun, in this case, pictures. So we would need to add an S. Are there? So these words right here, I'm actually going to click out of this for just a second. These words right here that I've underlined, these will always stay the same in your question. What will change is this word here. So that might be something that is helpful if you're looking and saying, that's kind of a long question, it's a lot to remember. Make it easy for yourself. How many and are there? Those words will always be the same in the questions we're doing today. this word is the one that changes. And again, just make sure you add the S to make it plural. And again, plural means two or more of something. Let's do another question. Door. So if I want to ask the number of doors in the room, if I want that information, how do I ask? What would my question be? Go ahead and say it. How many doors are there, right? So again, how many, that stays the same. Doors are plural noun. Are there, that stays the same. So I'm going to go back just a second. So remember how many are there? These words stay the same in our question. Only one word changes, and that is our noun. So if we look here, how many stayed the same. Doors, that word is different. Are there? And again, you want to make sure to add the S to make it plural. Yeah. Last one. Ooh, this is the challenging one. So I mentioned very briefly, I said very briefly yesterday, the rule for if we have two words in a noun and we need to make it plural. So I want you to think about where would you add S to this word, or this phrase, I should say, coffee table. If I want to make coffee table plural, where do I add the S? Where do you think? Go ahead and say it. Where do I add the S? At the end, right? So coffee tables. It will go at the end right here. Now, if I want to ask how many coffee tables there are in this room, kind of gave away the question. How would I ask? If I want to know the number of coffee tables in this room, how do I ask that question? Go ahead and say it. How do I ask the number of coffee tables? What is my question? How many coffee tables are there, right? Yeah. So how many coffee tables are there? How many, just like we saw before, stays the same. Coffee tables. The rule is when you have two words in a phrase, when you have two words in a phrase, the second word is the one that will take the S with the nouns. So your second word, tables, that will take the S. And then are there, that stays the same just as in all our other questions. The only thing that is different in this question is the noun coffee tables. So how is that? Is that okay? Yeah? So I'm gonna have you practice writing questions. So hopefully this was helpful. So when you go to do the activity and I say, okay, now write a question, here's an item, write a question. This is what I'm asking you to do. I want you to write how many questions, just like this, okay? So hopefully when you do the activity, it will make it not confusing. All right, here's our new words. As promised, not too many. I know I gave you like, I think 40 yesterday. A lot of those words we might not use a lot in this unit, but they're good words to know. They're good words to know. And I'll try and bring back as many of them as I can this week as we study housing. But some of those words we might not use a lot, or you might not use a lot, but they're good words to know. All right, so here are a few things. Let's see if that'll go away. No, there it goes. All right, so more vocabulary. So we're going to get the singular and then the plural version of each of these words. So singular is 1. Plural is 2 plus, 2 or more. So over here, so we'll just go A, B, C, D, that order. So we have 1 roof, 2 roofs. 1 roof, 2 roofs. 1 window, 2 windows. 1 window, 2 windows. 1 story, 2 stories. 1 story, 2 stories. 1 porch, 2 porches. 1 porch, 2 porches. I'll wait for that to move. We're going to do E once that disappears. 1 driveway, 2 driveways. This is E we're on. I can't move my mouse over there because the little box will come up. So we're on E. 1 driveway, 2 driveways. F, 1 fence, 2 fences. 1 fence, 2 fences. And the last one, G, 1 door, 2 doors. 1 door, 2 doors. Yeah? Feel okay? I want to talk about a few of these words. So the first one, so roof, this is of course the top of your house, the top part, the outside of that. So the top part of your house, the outside. Windows, I think we all know what windows are. If you don't, let me know. Stories. So this might be confusing. You might have heard the word stories and you're like, oh, like in a book or a movie, those are stories, right? That's one meaning of the word stories. Here, stories means the levels of your house. So if you see this line right here, this is a story. This is a story. And to go from one story to another story, you take stairs, right? So stories are the levels in your house. So maybe your house has 1 story, or your apartment, if you live in an apartment. Maybe it has 2 stories. One important difference that I'll mention here, sometimes there are, so especially if you live in apartments, sometimes we will have an apartment on the bottom and we have an apartment on the top, right? So we would not, so in that case, so if you live up here and let's say your friend Bob lives down here, so we would not say that you live in a 2-story apartment, because that means the whole apartment that is yours is 2 stories. We might say in that situation floor. Another word for story or level is floor. So you could say, so let's say, so here's, I'm actually going to draw this. My hands are not very helpful. All right, so we're going to draw this. That's why I keep paper nearby. And I'll draw some stairs. It's a very beautiful drawing. All right, here we go. Ta-da! All right, so I know, here, I'm gonna make this screen bigger. I know you have to see more of me. You're like, oh no, oops, sorry. I'm gonna make this bigger. All right, so let's say, actually I'm gonna add one more thing. Let's add a roof. All right, so let's say this is the apartment you live in. Let's say here's where Bob lives. Here is where you live, right? So this is the first floor, or we would say usually in apartments, we'll say the bottom floor, first floor, bottom floor. I'd write that on here, but it would show up backwards, so it wouldn't be very helpful. So first floor, bottom floor, second floor, top floor. So if you live here and Bob lives here, you do not live, so you can see my head there, shaking my head. You do not live in a 2-story apartment. You live in a 1-story apartment, but you live on the second floor, right? Or the top floor. Your friend Bob does not live in a 2-story apartment. He lives in a 1-story apartment on the bottom floor or the first floor, if that makes sense. So stories is how many stories are in the whole living space. So you could live in an apartment that has 2 levels, but your apartment is only 1 story, if that makes sense. I know I kind of jumped into whole extra explanation there. So maybe if you have an apartment that looks like this and you say, wait, is my apartment 2 stories? If your apartment is both this level and this level, then yes. If it's just this level, no. It's a 1-story apartment on the second level or the top level. Let's see, porch, here we go. So porch, this is the area outside your house in front of your front door. So you can see the porch right here. This one kind of has a porch, not really, just really stairs that go up to the door. It doesn't really look like these ones have porches. Porches, usually they can be small, but it's a little small, usually a square area. This one, the porch looks kind of long. It goes off to the side. Usually the porch will have some kind of fence or railing around it. So that is a porch right there. Driveway, something you can drive your car up. Fence. Here's a fence right here. This is kind of technically a gate. The fence would go around the house, maybe around the lawn, around the yard, those sorts of things. This part of it's a fence. It's also, we could say this is specifically a gate. And I think we know what doors are, right? You know, open and close, go out, go in, all those good things. All right, so has and doesn't have. So this is our grammar for today. So has and doesn't have. So when we talk about our house, our apartment, we can say, for example, my house has 2 stories. My house has 2 windows. My house has 1 driveway. My house has 3 doors. Let's say I'm going to put apartment with these ones. My apartment doesn't have a chimney. My apartment doesn't have a driveway. My apartment doesn't have a fence. My apartment doesn't have a porch, for example. So has means yes, this is at my house, this is at my apartment, this is what it looks like. Doesn't have means no, it's not there, you don't see it. Here's another example. My apartment has 2 stories, 2 doors, and 6 windows. It doesn't have a fence or a driveway. So that is an example of a description, so telling about your apartment, right? All right. So we're gonna do some listening first. Most of the writing that we'll do for this, I know with the other one we practiced where I gave a question and then we did answers. Most of this is going to be listening, and I will have you do writing for this in the activity. One quick thing I want to say. So my house has, let's say, 2 windows. Let's look at the windows. So my house has 2 windows. This will come up again later on another slide. You could also say there are 2 windows in my house, or there are 2 windows in my apartment. So you could say this 2 different ways if you wanted. It's usually just easier to say my house has 2 windows. The sentence is shorter, but if you wanted to say my house, or sorry, there are 2 windows in my house, you could do that. That would mean the same thing. It's just a longer sentence. All right, so let's listen. What does the house have? So here's a picture of a house that I found online. And I'm just going to read to you an example of if I were to go in and talk about what things does this house have, what would a writing for that look like? And I'm going to give you a picture later, and I'm going to have you do something just like this, where I will say, what does the house have? You will write some sentences and tell me from our new words what the house has. The house has a driveway. Here's the driveway. The house has a porch. There's the porch. The house has a door. There's the door. The house has 2 stories. So here's story 1, story 2. The house has a roof. Here's the roof. The house has at least 5 windows. So I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not sure if that's a window. There's probably more than 5 windows in this house though. So I said at least 5 because I know there's 5, but I think there could be more. And there probably are, I just can't see them in this picture because it's a pretty big looking house. So when you do this writing activity later, I'm going to divide it in what does the house have. Still write about what does the house have versus what does the house not have. So important things to remember. If you are saying one of something, you have some options. So you could say the house has a driveway. A means 1. Or you could say the house has 1 driveway. So O-N-E, 1. The house has 1 driveway. The house has a driveway. The house has 1 driveway. Those both mean the same thing. So you could choose to use the number, or you could use a or an. I think all of these use a. So in this case, you would choose a. So a, or you could say 1. It's up to you. Both are technically correct because a has the same meaning as 1. So let's listen again. What does the house not have? So I will ask you this question and you will tell me about things in our new words that you don't see here. And this, it's a much shorter list. The house doesn't have a chimney. So I don't see a chimney up there. The house doesn't have 1 story because it has 2 stories. The house doesn't have a fence. So these are things the house doesn't have. Again, you could say a, or you could say 1. You could say a, or you could say 1. Usually when we're talking about stories, so the levels, we will go with the numbers. So it's important to keep the numbers, but for this one, The house doesn't have a chimney or doesn't have one chimney. The house doesn't have a fence. The house doesn't have one fence. One thing to think about when you are making negatives though, so if I say the house doesn't have one fence, a second meaning to that sentence could be it doesn't have one fence because it has two fences or three fences or five fences, or however many fences it has. Or the house doesn't have one chimney. The second meaning could be because it has five chimneys or two chimneys or three chimneys. So you could still say one here. So the house doesn't have one chimney. The house doesn't have a chimney. Sometimes when you use the numbers with the negatives though, it gives the idea that there's a different number that's true. So if I say the number isn't one, the person you're talking to or writing to might be waiting for you to give a different number. So if I say the house doesn't have one chimney, I might wait and say, well, how many does it have then? Does it have three? Does it have five? This isn't the situation always, but many people might have that idea if you use a number with the negatives. When you do the positives though, you can use the number, you can use a, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the meaning. But if I say the house doesn't have one chimney, I'm saying it's not true that the house has one chimney, but it could be true that it has more than one. So again, for the most part with these, I might recommend, unless you have a different meaning, just using a for the negatives. But with the stories, you do want to use the numbers because that's important here. So like I said in my example, the house doesn't have one story. So it's not true that the house has one story because it has two, right? So just be careful with numbers and negatives because it might give kind of a second idea that maybe you don't mean to give it. All right, so this is just a quick little thing, then we'll do a final listening. So as I talk through this, if you don't have a paper handy, maybe grab some paper. We're gonna do a listening in just a minute. So talking about rooms in a house, when we ask how many rooms are in a house, we can answer with have, has, or there is, are. For example, if your friend asks you, how many bedrooms are in your house or apartment? You can give two different answers. There are 2 bedrooms. It has 2 bedrooms. In this, the word it is referring to your house or your apartment. It has 2 bedrooms. So you could choose to give either of these answers. They're both excellent answers to this question. There are 2 bedrooms. It has 2 bedrooms. One reason why you might choose one over the other. So this second one, it has 2 bedrooms. This one is a little easier because you don't have to think about kind of the plural versus singular. It has 2 bedrooms, it has 1 bedroom, it has 5 bedrooms. This number can change and this first part will stay the same. So if you find this sentence, this answer easier, you are free to use it all you want. There are 2 bedrooms. If you only had 1, you would have to change it and say there is 1 bedroom. So with that one, you have to think a little bit more about changing the verb just because of the way those sentences work. So you might not choose to answer with those. But if you hear someone else say there are 2 bedrooms, you understand what they mean, right? So you are free to choose either of these and answer with either of these. One more example. How many bathrooms are in your house or apartment? There is one bathroom. It has one bathroom. So again, you can use either of these answers. If you own a home or are looking to buy a home, in most homes and sometimes apartments, usually not, but it could happen. In homes, you might have something called a half bath. A half bath is a half bathroom. This is a bathroom with a toilet, but no bathtub or shower. So what that means, so if you have a house that is 1.5, so I'll say that again, 1.5 baths, 1.5 bathrooms. What that means is you have 2 toilets, but you only have 1 bathtub or shower. So half bath just means there's no bathtub, there's no shower, it's just a toilet. And that is something that is unique to America. So this is an American term. So half bath, maybe you've heard that. Maybe you have one in your house if you have a house, or maybe you have one in your apartment. That is what that means. So if you've ever seen that and said, huh, that's kind of weird. Why does it say 1.5 instead of 2 when there's 2 toilets? The reason would be because one of those does not have a bathtub or a shower in the same room. All right, so we're going to do a listening. So grab some paper, something to write on. So I'm going to have you listen to the conversation. Because this is just me reading it, I will say A before A speaks and B before B speaks. I will read this 3 times and then we will go over answers. All right, so here goes our listening. This one I had to write notes on this one. I'm gonna read off my notes. All right, so first read. A, what kind of home do you live in? B, I live in an apartment. A, what does your apartment have? B, it has 2 doors and 3 windows. It has 1 story. It has a small porch. A, how many bedrooms does it have? B, there is 1 bedroom. A, how many bathrooms does it have? B, it has 1 bathroom. So I'll give you just a couple seconds there. We will read it 2 more times. I did take out a lot of words, but these are words that we've heard a lot recently, so I figured it would be okay. So take a moment, write those down. We have how many? 1, 2, 10. Of course we have 10, I counted just now. Sometimes I'll take out the words and then I will count how many I took out afterwards. So I'll give you just a minute, write down any answers you think you have. All right, so we're going to read it again. And again, if at any point you finish writing your answers early, feel free to read along with me. All right, so from the beginning, A, what kind of home do you live in? B, I live in an apartment. A, what does your apartment have? B, it has 2 doors and 3 windows. It has 1 story. It has a small porch. A, how many bedrooms does it have? B, there is 1 bedroom. A, how many bathrooms does it have? B, it has one bathroom. So I'll give you a few seconds, write down any answers you heard, and then we'll read it one more time before we go over answers. All right, last read. A, what kind of home do you live in? B, I live in an apartment. A, what does your apartment have? B, it has 2 doors and 3 windows. It has 1 story. It has a small porch. A, how many bedrooms does it have? B, there is 1 bedroom. A, how many bathrooms does it have? B, it has 1 bathroom. All right, and our answers are, oh, I didn't highlight them. That's okay. So answers are, actually, as we read this, so A, what kind of home do you live in? B, I live in an apartment. A, what does your apartment have? B, it has 2 doors and 3 windows. It has 1 story. It has a small porch. A, how many bedrooms does it have? And then, so there, B, there is 1 bedroom. Oh, I'm struggling. Okay. And A, how many bathrooms does it have? And then, very quickly, I'm just going to shrink it. It has 1 bathroom. So our answers were home, apartment, doors, 3, story, A, many, is, how, and has. So did you get them all? Yeah? Close, yeah? I think you did great. All right, so that concludes our video for today. A little bit shorter, I think, than yesterday's video. I can never tell. I don't have a clock on. I should probably have a clock going as I record these, but I don't. I just kind of, record them and take as much time as I feel I need to go through the slides. Happy Tuesday. Pesci says hi. I realized I hadn't put a picture of Pesci in the slideshow in a while, so I thought I would fix that. As always, if you have questions on anything in this video, you can comment below, you can comment in the classroom, you can send me a message, send me an email, anything like that. I'd be happy to answer your questions. This slideshow will be shared on the Google Classroom. So you can go through if there was a slide that maybe I went through too quickly or you want to just see it again, you'll be able to see this whole presentation on there. So what you're gonna do now, so now that you're finished watching the video, you can go back to the Google Classroom and you can do the activities for how many and for have, has. So I'm gonna have you do a little bit with there is, there are, and a little bit with has and have. I'm gonna have you write some questions. Nothing too bad though, but it will be a little more writing focused today. So be prepared for writing. So thank you for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more. do this.